trimesters orchids. Today I decided to deflask my orchid, and they are, excuse the broken glass there, Paph philippinense times Sib. So I've already cracked into the glass by the time I decided to start filming, but it looked very much like this one here. So it probably had wider leaves, less plants, but it did have good roots in there. And the reason I chose to deflask the other one first before this one is because these ones had quite a few brown leaves on them, and some of the plants were growing roots up above the agar. So I smashed the glass. I'm soaking them in just some tepid water. I'm trying to separate them. I'll dry them out over here, and then I'll try trimming off some of the broken leafy bits and end up with a pile of leafage, and then I'll carry on the video and we'll repot them up. I have decided, because these are reasonably big plants, that the majority, or big seedlings, the majority of them are going to go into separate little containers. So I've got them set aside. I've got bark that's damp. I'll probably mix in a little bit of perlite just so that the bark doesn't stay too damp, and then I'll show you a little more as we go. So the ones that come out of the pot, I just kind of shake them apart. If we get some like this where the roots are together, just try separating them. That one has an amazing big root there. We'll try not to break that. Nope, that came apart pretty easy. So I'm going to separate them into ones that will go into individual containers, and then if there are any tiny little plants, I'll put them into a community pot or a compot. Rub around in the water, but it still does have some roots in amongst those dead bits of leaf. See if we can put this over here for a bit. So I still have a bit of a clump, and I just want to swish them around in there as much as I possibly can to get those roots apart without damaging them. I want to try and leave as many of the good roots on as possible. And sometimes here I think like there are possibly, am I on camera? There, I think there are possibly 3 seedlings, but some of them have got very brown leaves, and I really don't know that they'll do much. So there's actually, no, 4 seedlings. I will try maybe and get the bigger one off. All fingers in front of the camera. No, that bunch are really hard to separate, so maybe for now they just go in the community pot. And the last 2. Okay, so I'm going to clean them up. I'm going to take off those brown leafy bits, check on any roots, make sure I've got all the agar out. That's my, oh, excuse my camera, that's my last chunky little bits of agar and mess that are left. And I'll make this pile bigger, and then we'll come back and stick some into the little containers, individual containers. So here I have cleaned up their roots, taken off their brown leaves, and sort of put them into a section of 15 that are quite good plants with reasonable roots. There are 5 that are good plants that don't really have reasonable roots, that'll go in the community pot with the 4 or 5 little straggly bits. They have reasonable size holes. So I'm going to find something to cover up the bottom of 15 of those, and then find myself a little community pot. So I have hopefully sorted out my problem with some good old New Zealand sphagnum moss. Now I do know that sphagnum moss will deteriorate faster than the bark, but they're seedlings and hopefully within a year or so they will be checked or they would be repotted, and the sphagnum can be removed in a different layer of stuff stuck on the bottom. So that just means that now that I don't have holes, I have something hopefully stopping the wee bark chips from falling out. So I'm going to mix perlite with the very fine bark chips. Now these bark chips have been boiled to take out the excess tannin from them, and it also helps to keep them moist for the first couple of days that your plant transfers into them. So that there is the packaging for the perlite here in New Zealand, and that's the bigger size of the two, and some other people in countries call it sponge rock and can get bigger sizes than this. This is not very big, it's still really quite little. I've certainly seen in other videos where from people that it is bigger than that. However, I'm going to mix approximately half quantities of perlite and the bark chip, and then I'm going to give them a mix around. So I'm just going to add some more bark chips into this mix here until I feel happy that it's not looking quite as dry as it was. So now I'm going to bring this one over by this one, and I'm just going to put a little bit into the bottom of each of these pots. So each individual little plant is going to get spaced in its pot. Really good sized little pots, these ones, and then I'm going to fill in around each one. So I think what I'm going to do is fill them up off camera and then just poke them down lightly, give them a few taps to make sure that there's no gap in the thing, and then I'll come back and show you them once they're potted up. So here we are with my finished plants, seedlings. So that's them all there with their little layers of their bark over the top in the individual pots, and the community pot. So what I did with my community pot was I laid the bigger ones around the edge, and then as I put the bark in, I put some behind them so that they, and poke it down a little bit so that they have some bark behind them, and then those other ones that were kind of a little bit weird all stuck together, or anything that was very tiny just got poked in there, and that's how they look. So they had the bark layer, they had the perlite layer and bark, and then just the bark on top. So for a while now they're going to go into one of my containers that I have a heat pad in, and I turn that on. I keep it quite steamy because of course these have been in 100% humidity. So just to show you what I did last week and what I have here soaking next to me. So this is quite often how I give my plants a good soak. That's a big blue Systema container, and it's just got water in it. So that's all of the little Delanates that are the FMA Alba ones that went into individual pots. They were all happy and looked really good. So they've been in that other steamy container for a week and dried out. Now they're getting a good soak, and there's lots of other little seedlings in there. So when they have a good soak, they're in these containers that have mesh bottoms. I just let them drain out. And last week I deflasked some that really didn't look very good at all. The whole flask like hardly had any roots. Lots of the little leaves were browning and they were looking just scraggly. It wasn't worth trying to put them into individual pots and looking after them all in individual pots. Now I didn't fertilize them at all when they went into here, they just went into the damp bark, and again I'm pretty sure that I layered that with bark on the top, the bark and perlite, and the big chips down the bottom for the drainage. But now I think I will start giving these some fertilizer, just a weak solution of fertilizer, so that they can start getting some nutrients, because they were yellowing, they didn't have enough nutrients. There's only one really good big plant in there, a couple of others, but yeah, they looked really scraggly, so that was the reason why I deflasked those first. There was, and they are Michael Cooperwitz. There's another one here that was in the same kind of condition, not many good roots at all, and browning off. I might have picked off some of the browning off bits. And this one here is Paph Saint Switchin. So they're, I think, mostly still alive a week later, but they're only in a shallow little pot, and no bark down the bottom, holes down the bottom of the containers, in the edge and at the base of the container. Oops, can we see there? And just bark on top. So, and the Delinati FMA albiform had so many in the pot along with the individual ones, I did a little community pot of the little ones. So again, bark on top, bark and perlite in the middle, and it's a bit harder to see the chunkier bark down the bottom of the pot, but just so that it's got plenty of drainage. The roots on those won't be getting down past the bottom at the moment. So that's how I have been deflasking my Paphiopedilums. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you found this video informative. Of course, this is what I do. It doesn't mean to say that this has to be how you do it, but at least you can see how it goes for me. As an update for the ones, the Paph Argus that I did last year, I did them all into fern fibre, and I didn't like it. I did not have a good success rate in the all fern fibre, and even the ones that have got a bit bigger, I've swapped them out into the mix that has fern fibre, the wood chips, it has charcoal, and it has bits of pumice in it. So for me, I find that if something doesn't work, why leave it in there and let them die? So I switch them out and I try some other form to see if they like it, and the other paths do seem to be enjoying that mix and continuing to grow. So I hope you've had a good day everybody, and give me the thumbs up if you liked my videos. Don't forget to share and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.